Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
Well, Steve, I don't know about you, but, podcasting seems to be controversial these days. But I had to laugh when I saw this story about Joe Rogan, and that got picked up. And again, I haven't seen the actual episode in the whole context, but they grabbed that line about him basically saying if you're 21 years old, you don't need to get vaccinated. And
so that was trouble right there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I really would like to have. I really should have a look at what the whole rest of the discussion was. I mean, that on its own doesn't sound good, but it's also the reaction that generated, and it just makes me so cynical on so many fronts. Because one, did he throw that in just because he knew it would be clickbaited, and it did what it did? You know, it's gone all around the world. Everyone's talking about his podcast. That's going to drive more viewership to him or something. And then there's the actual message itself, you know, that it's perhaps not terribly helpful to have thrown that out there like that. And then there's just like what we were saying, you know, like this general news environment where what are you going to listen to online these days that isn't going to be turned into a farce?
Well, that's right. I mean, you know, I haven't seen the quote myself, so I don't know the context. I mean, it doesn't sound helpful, but who knows anymore? I mean, we've seen people far less famous and notable say things that, you know, media jumps on, makes a quote out of, and it's clickbait. So let's hope that he was well-meaning, but ultimately at the end of the day, it really probably doesn't matter. If people aren't knowledgeable enough by now to know whether or not they should be getting a vaccine, well then, you know, I don't know what to say.
Absolutely. Not to mention that $100 million Spotify money, maybe, that's all good for him anyway, so he could probably say whatever he likes now. And,
he can probably build a pretty big bubble for himself using that money. So, good luck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enjoy life on whatever island you're on.
Yeah, exactly. In that vein, I guess, was this follow-up story that we saw about these two YouTubers that were deported from Bali following a prank video. And if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. No, you can't check it out, it's been pulled. But essentially someone just one of them painted a face mask on their face and pretended that they were still wearing it and went around and under the guise that they were claiming to entertain people, but obviously drew the ire of the local authorities, and they're seeing the bad end of it. And it just again, I think this is kind of like the clickbaity Joe Rogan story, where someone's like trying to push too hard in one direction to get those clicks, and again another farce that comes out. This
is pretty funny, but I guess it ranks alongside of in the aftermath of 9/11 with saying I've got a bomb at the airport when you get frustrated. So it's humour running directly into regulations, and typically regulations win, even if it is funny.
Absolutely. But just on that, and I guess with those two stories in particular kind of highlight the fact that so much can be sort of spun out of control on the internet, and you have to question what is actually news that you're watching, and almost a recommendation that you're probably better off unplugging for good chunks of your week and not getting hung up on a lot of this stuff, because it just seems to be never ending, and it's almost accelerating almost. It's to not to put a downer on it, but it just seems to be getting worse and worse. I mean, I remember having a discussion earlier in the week about if the pandemic had happened 20 years ago, and if how would the public have reacted in 20 years ago? And I was thinking back then, okay, well, the news media was probably taken more seriously, so people probably would have just broadly listened to what was said on the news. They probably would have listened to what political leaders would have said straight off the bat. And that's not to say that there wouldn't be people complaining, but you probably would have had less of a protesty type movement and lots of various fringe type of reactions to things like this, which we're seeing today.
Yeah, I mean, I had to think about this myself, and initially I thought there would have been more fear 20 years ago, because to get information, well, what causes fear in humans typically is lack of information. But then I sort of thought about it, and I thought about like all the mental health issues that have occurred over the last year, which, you know, are mainly due to anxiety associated with the lockdown. And I don't know, I don't have any evidence, but, you know, I'd be very interested in knowing if a lot of the over-information caused the anxiety that led to the mental health issues. So maybe we're no better off. Maybe it's all bad, just different.
Absolutely. And I guess there isn't any sort of resolution, it seems. It's not like a phase that we're going through. It seems like it's going to just keep going this way. So it'll be, I guess we'll just have to see how it goes really longer term.
Well, I think now it's quite evident that, yes, this is going to go on for at least another year.
Absolutely. Switching topics now, what caught my eye here with this Apple AntiTrust hearing with the company Tile likening the Find My network to a hostage program and the App Store and all that. I mean, broadly speaking, I think this is the Sherlock effect, I believe it's called, where the first it's readily available on online if you want to read up about that. But essentially, it was Apple introducing the Spotlight feature into Mac OS and basically killing off the third-party software provider that was doing it for them. And Apple has had a history of doing this to other companies, and the latest one that's come up is Tile, because with Apple's introduction of AirTags, effectively Tile doesn't really have a reason to exist anymore as a business, and so the claim being is Apple, using its market dominance to squash people out. Maybe, but then there's also the counter argument, which is if you're flying too close to the sun with your business, you better be prepared to be burnt, because it seems like their entire business was around a potential product that Apple was just going to subsume at some point anyway.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And look, I would think now, I mean, Tile's been around for quite a while. It's easy. I mean, I've got a friend who's got an iWatch with a Find My iWatch sort of, and he uses that so he can be tracked, for personal reasons with his family and that sort of stuff. So, the idea that Apple can create tags is no big deal. Like, the Find My device is exactly the same principle as Tile. Tile is actually old technology now because all the systems can do it. I mean, Google are tracking you wherever you go. They're just not admitting it. But I mean, it won't be long before they come out with their own tags as well. It's one of those things. It's, I guess 20 years ago you would have had earphone makers. Sony still makes earbuds and that sort of thing. But let's face it, they didn't cry foul when Apple introduced buds. So I think this is actually technology moving on, and this is what's being subsumed. It's not actually, in this instance, particularly anything to do with Apple trying to, take out competition.
Yeah, well, they're just effectively looking for ways to, continually suck people into their ecosystem and keep them there.
That's right.
And this is just yet another product that they can sell you at a higher price to stay there.
I did have a chuckle about it being like a prison. I thought that was pretty funny. And they're right, but it just depends which side of the fence you want to be on. Do you want to be behind the Apple fence where Apple owns you, but at least they might not exploit you as badly as outside the fence, which is, as I was saying before, Ben, if you're on an Android phone, you're getting ripped off every second of the day. Like your data, your privacy, everything's out the window. So, you can say Apple's, running some sort of gulag or something like that, with Apple education, for the Apple fans or whatever, but the exterior of that system is no better. So maybe Apple's actually really just giving everyone a choice.
And as a corollary, I guess to our first two topics, there's also I guess if you think about big tech in general and its place in society on these types of things, that there's still a long way to go until an equilibrium is developed about what their place is and how we interact with them and all that sort of thing. It still seems like we've maybe progressed further than the Wild West stage, but it's still kind of rough out there, potentially.
It's exceedingly rough. I mean, look, we're getting absolutely, our data's being scraped off anything we touch, so anyway, look, I think it's a matter of perspective. I do think what's interesting is viewing Apple that way, in particular, the way they're trying to paint them in the AntiTrust case is interesting, because you probably couldn't have done that 4 or 5 years ago. We've seen a lot of changes to the way they're trying to regulate big tech, and I think this is just one of them. But I mean, honestly, as I said before, it's an either or. I mean, you have a choice not to be with Apple, and then you can go out and experience the other kind of life, which I've been doing for a few years now, and it ain't that great.
Absolutely. All right, and finally, I guess sort of related to our news topics, I guess, but just our return to US politics. We haven't actually discussed it for a couple of months. It's actually been kind of nice, actually.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that because we did do a lot of coverage of Trump, etc., but it was good that we took a breather there for a while after Biden got in. But Biden's now clocked up his first 100 days, done his that speech to Congress the other day in a nice socially distant chamber, and all that. And I think it's interesting because, again, the news cycle, to tie it back into that, has to inevitably come back to how does his first 100 days compare to Trump's first 100 days? What's he been doing? What was Trump doing? And I think if there was anything that I would say, is that maybe just those 100 days were an indicator of what was to come for the following 4 years. So, Biden's, been doing his thing. I think some people have been saying that he's perhaps not as sleepy as what Trump was suggesting that he would be, in the sense that he seems to be trying to push things more through than expected for someone that maybe wasn't considered to be all that, pushy, I guess, in terms of things. But I don't know. I just get the impression that he's more of the traditional type of old school president, in the sense of you don't hear from him that much. He's not tweeting every day, and just keeping it on the level kind of thing. But at the same time, there's a little bit of throwing as much at the wall as possible while I guess they've got control of Congress or something. I don't know.
Oh, look, I don't know. I'm very cynical about all these things these days, and I wouldn't necessarily directly comment on whether he's being a good president or not. In fact, I'm not even interested in that anymore post-Trump. But in my cynical best, what I really sort of imagine is his marketing and comms team around the table. Joe, you got to make a splash. What's the biggest number we can come up with for a stimulus package? You got to go out there and give it, because I reckon the rest of the time he is sleeping, say, compared to Trump. And then they get him up there, and every statement he's making is big and maximum impact. The one thing I will say that I think quite genuinely he's doing well is managing the rollout of the vaccines in the US, and his message is exceptionally strong whenever he gives that message. So I guess I'm pleased to see that. I don't think Trump, with his handling of the last year of COVID, was anything to write home about at all. So I guess in a situation which the American nation is experiencing now, it's good to see some consistent and strong messaging around COVID. And I think they're actually managing their vaccine program very well. So that's probably the plus and what I take out of it. But the rest of it, to me, is just, I don't know, it's all Biden brand,
yeah,
as developed by his marketing team.
And just to tie it back to the whole news coverage, etc. I did have to chuckle that the CNN and MSNBC in particular were just like having all this gushing coverage over the speech, etc., and whatever he was up to and all that. And it just undercuts, like, they're trying to make themselves out to be, okay, we're trying to be fair and unbiased with the news coverage. But when you've got, like, their commentators tearing up on camera, like, they're so touched by what they're hearing. And it's just like, guys, you're really shooting yourselves in the foot if you're trying to get yourselves to be taken seriously. And you're just giving fodder to, the right-wing media to just, chew you up and spit you out if you're going to do that sort of thing. And I just don't get it. But again, there's so much about the news and the media landscape and the internet right now that just I don't get, and I don't think any rational person could get anyway.
Well, let's face it, Biden's aiming already for a second term.
In case there was any doubt.
I don't think there's any doubt at all. I think he's there. I think he looks to me to be enjoying it. I don't know. It might be whatever supplements he's using to stay young and fresh, but he looks like he's enjoying it. And I do think actually he speaks reasonably well and with a little bit of vigour. So who knows?
Absolutely. I guess the telltale sign will be to see where US politics goes over the next couple of years in the sense of the traditional, I guess, sort of, cycle of things would suggest that the Republicans would retake control of the Congress in 2 years' time, given the way the political cycles work. And if that were to happen, obviously that hit some roadblock and not much happening. If it did happen to go the other way and they still kept going, it would be interesting to see if they changed their actual course as opposed to whatever it was that they've been on in the last, not just 4 years, but probably even, 10, 15 years, really.
Yeah, very true there. I think actually the key, or the things I'm most interested in seeing what Biden achieves, is what he's doing already, I think, in terms of international dialogues. And he's actually kept them pretty low-key, or they are being reported low-key, say, compared to stimulus and, other aspects of what's going on internally in the US. So if he can, I think, manage some of the global relationships, some of the geopolitics that's out there now, then he could well be considered quite an outstanding president, but we'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. I'm not sure, where any of this will take us. Thankfully, no one heard our initial discussion before we got online. I think we were about to off ourselves there at that point. But yeah, hopefully we'll just keep the optimistic view of how things are going, I guess, and we'll be right here to report it.
Yeah, absolutely. Always, and without clickbait.
Absolutely. All right, so don't forget our website, SciTechCulture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, our RSS feeds, and watch us on any and all of your devices. And we greatly appreciate your visits to our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.